The hospital didn't recognize our marriage, assigned to save her life, and a clerk asked if I was legally her husband. That question split my world open, and my revenge began with a pen signature that erases me. The form said amended marriage 8 months ago. I don't remember amending anything, do you? Fluorescent lights hummed above me, a cold hive with no queen. Antiseptic bit the back of my throat, sharp as guilt. A heart monitor clicked in the next bay, steady, indifferent. I pressed the ballpoint hard, like pressure could force reality to behave. My name looked familiar. The paper beneath it did not. Amended marriage. Effective date, 8 months before tonight. Someone had reached back through time and rearranged my life. The clerk never raised her voice, but the words stung like ice. She needed proof. I was the lawful spouse, not just the panicked one. If you were me, would your hands shake or ball into fists? Counting to 5, then 10. I focused on the sliding doors, exhaling each time they sighed open. I pictured my kids sleeping at home, unaware of this fluorescent storm. I reminded myself to be the adult in the room. Rage is loud, evidence is patient. Justice prefers paper to shouting. The paperwork has a pulse. Her chart flagged a discrepancy. Our file echoed it. Paper doesn't lie, people do. The nurse's shoes whispered past. Rubber on tile, like a secret. I smelled coffee burnt to bitterness at the end of a long shift. Somewhere, an ice machine hiccuped, then swallowed the sound. Her chart had a note about emergency contact verification. A tiny circle, drawn in pencil around the word spouse. I felt like a stranger walking through my own house. We had 10 years behind us, a mortgage, 2 birthdays on the fridge, but a pencil circle said, maybe I was the wrong man on paper. I told myself it was a clerical hiccup, a harmless glitch. That was the last easy lie I let myself believe. 8 months ago, someone planned tonight. An amended license isn't an accident, it's a rehearsal. For what? 8 months ago sat like a splinter under my skin. What happened then? What did I miss? I traced our calendar in my head. Holidays, school plays, a promotion. Her mother started visiting more. That detail finally rang loud. The visits came with casseroles and advice that wasn't advice. Rules whispered as concern. Boundaries redrawn as kindness. I remembered the new filing cabinet in our hallway. She called it organization. I called it a locked drawer. Back then, I laughed it off and carried on. Tonight, the laugh sounded like someone else's mistake. I leaned against the wall and let the cold seep through my back. If a door was moved without me, a reason moved it. People forge papers for money, power, or both. Which was I an obstacle, an asset, or a target? If this feels paranoid, imagine a clerk doubting your marriage. Imagine a pencil circle around your name asking who you are. Revenge doesn't start with fire, it starts with calm. I swallowed the scream. I chose math over rage. Rage breaks. Math proves. I pictured the steps like a ladder in a burning room. Step 1. Secure the kids, keep their world quiet and intact. Step 2. Copy everything from insurance cards to grocery receipts. Step 3. Follow the date months to the source. I would not kick doors. I would pick locks politely. I would smile at clerks, collect stamps, and let paper talk. I would make the truth do what anger never could. You want a roaring bonfire? I want clean, cold air. Justice for the quiet partner. A win for the underdog. If you were me, would you crave the spectacle or the verdict? The room smelled like lemon disinfectant and stale hope.
Thanks.
Vents rattled, steady as a drumline for my plan. Her hand lay still, under a warmed blanket, pale and small. I remembered vows spoken years ago, now floating like ash. Tonight, I honored a better vow. Protect the innocent, even from family. I would not be erased by a forged date and a tidy file. I would turn their paper into my weapon. I would climb from suspicion to proof, one document at a time. When I reached the top, they would finally see me. Somewhere down the hall, an elevator chimed, bright and false. I set my jaw and counted to 5 again. Open loops can strangle you or pull you forward. Mine would pull me forward. 8 months is a thread. I'm already holding the end. 2 records, 1 marriage. The county system showed my name twice. Same spouse, 2 dates. If paper can clone me, what else did they copy? Morning light cut through a thin fog, the kind that softens edges. The recorder's office smelled like dust and toner and old secrets. Printers coughed pages onto plastic trays, steady as metronomes. I slid my request across the counter and kept my voice calm in my head. Calm makes doors open. Calm makes stamps appear. A minute later, the clerk returned with a frown that wasn't personal. 2 entries, original and amended. Same license number, new timestamp. 8 months ago, someone rewrote the part where I exist. The pen stroke was wrong. The amended page showed a signature that wore my name like a mask. The slant leaned left. Mine always climbs. My chest tightened, like a belt cinched 1 notch too far. Loopsed around, pressure too uneven, line weight off the spine. I could feel the imposter gripping the pen, hesitant, heavy, pretending. A notary seal sat near the date, crisp and dark like a fresh bruise. I didn't recognize the seal. I recognized intent. If a stranger signs your name, what part of you dies first? I traced my thumb along the page edge and felt grit from the copy, not fear, friction. Proof has texture when you finally touch it. I paid for certified copies with hands that wouldn't stop buzzing. Evidence over anger, paper over shouting, verdict over spectacle. The file had a shadow. Attached to the amendment sat a form for correction due to administrative error. Either the county blundered or someone rehearsed that excuse. Administrative error. 2 gentle words covering a hard shove. Pictured a calendar marked with neat boxes and quiet plans. Whoever filed this knew where the lines were and how to tiptoe. Witness names blurred into initials. Addresses hid behind P.O. boxes. The trail wasn't clean. It was careful. Careful is louder than clean. On the way out, I copied a notary name into my phone. The letters felt heavy, like a key I hadn't earned yet. Keys aren't always metal. Sometimes they're 5 letters in a stamp. Stepped into street noise that smelled like hot asphalt and cheap coffee. A bus hissed, and I heard it as a warning to move faster. Home had a locked heartbeat. Our hallway cabinet hummed at me, the quiet hum of a secret that thinks it's safe. The spare key waited where lazy plans always leave them. The lock turned with a small metallic chirp that felt smug. Inside, folders labeled insurance, county, medical proxy, all too tidy. Paper clips aligned like soldiers. A highlighter cap still warm. I found a notary's business card that matched the seal from the copy. Under it, a checklist printed in bullet points, cold and practical. Bring 2 IDs. Bring witness. Avoid spouse present. The ink wasn't fresh, but the intent still smelled new. A sticky note in curvy script sat on top meal prep handwriting, motherly loops. Her mother's leaps. I'd seen them on recipe cards and holiday envelopes. This drawer wasn't organization. It was choreography. 8 months had a map. I built a timeline on the kitchen counter with receipts and screenshots. Every pin landed near the same intersection, the notary's block. Bank statements bled tiny numbers across the page, quiet and damning. A miss pinged the same address on 3 separate Fridays. A rideshare receipt traced a neat triangle from home to the notary to a P.O. box. I circled each date with a pen that still remembered my true hand. My breath synced with the clicks of the fridge motor. Steady, patient. Patience is a weapon when you've promised yourself revenge without flames. I wasn't hunting scandal. I was building custody, safety, and truth. Underdogs win by rules, not by noise. If you were me, would you swing or would you document? I chose to document. Swinging is for people who need applause. The drawer coughed up a breadcrumb. Tucked in the back lay a thin envelope, unsealed and forgetful. Inside, a photocopy of a lease addendum with a single tempting clue. Unit 3B, month to month. Tenant name blacked out, but handwriting familiar. The same curvy loops in the margins, urging bring cash in soft letters. A phone number scrawled at the bottom, not a contact I recognized. I felt heat crawl up my neck, not rage readiness. This wasn't about a fling, this was infrastructure. A quiet apartment makes a perfect staging area for a paper crime. I slid the envelope back with the care of a museum guard. No sudden moves, no smudges on the glass. Let them believe their secret still sleeps. Secrets are easiest to move when they think they're safe. My house had rules against mine. I backed up scans to an external drive in a cloud I never share. The kids' routine stayed unchanged. Their world would not crack on my watch. Lunches prepped, pickup arranged, homework corner reset like always. Stability is the soft armor that fraudsters never planned for. I called no one, announced nothing. I shut every open mouth in my head. The plan was simple. Verify the notary, verify the witness, verify the lease. Verifications beat 10 arguments. Justice likes checkmarks more than tears. Some people want a viral confession. I want a judge to nod once. The nod is the loudest sound you can make without shouting. If you're rooting for me, root for the small steps. Small steps topple tall lies. The next door waited under a fluorescent buzz. By afternoon, I stood inside a strip mall office that smelled like laminate and citrus cleaner. I wasn't there to accuse. I was there to ask the right silence. Clipboards rattled somewhere behind a frosted partition. A laser printer clicked awake like a cat deciding to pounce. I stared at the notary's name on a wall plaque and felt the floor steady. Names on walls can be moved, but logs cannot. Logs are clocks with ink instead of hands. If the book confirms the date and the witness, the circle tightens. If it doesn't, the lie needs a new name. Either way, my ladder out of this burns brighter than their matchbook. 8 months ago, someone rehearsed tonight. Today I start rehearsing the verdict. The logbook breathed ink. The notary slid a hardbound ledger across the counter. Columns marched like soldiers. Names, dates, witness initials. Each line a small courtroom. I watched gloved fingers stop at a month I already hated. 8 months back, her name sat there, still and unquestioned. Next to it, a witness marked 2 tidy letters I recognized from holiday potlucks and workplace gift tags. Familiar letters can cut deeper than knives. The initials belonged to her closest coworker, the cheerful one, the one who remembered everyone's birthdays and loved themes. I felt a thud in my ribs, not pain recognition. If the paper said she stood there, then a smile had stood there too. Smiles make excellent masks. The ledger smelled faintly of dust and lemon. I signed the request for a certified copy with hands that held steady now. Proof has a way of cooling your pulse. Silence is a conversation when you let it be. I thanked the notary without adding suspicion to the air. The printer warmed up with a low purr, feeding paper to truth. I read the entry twice, 3 times, mapping the way ink chose the page. Location stamp. Time stamp. A neat flourish that matched the seal I'd already seen at home. The world outside the window washed by in muted stripes of traffic. Horns barked, then faded. Inside, I kept my voice in my chest and let it nod. A helpful friend arrived exactly on cue. By noon, her coworker messaged to check on us. She was kind, excessive, immediate. She offered rides, meals, paperwork tips, anything. She used words like we and together, soft pillows for hard furniture. I noticed what she didn't ask: the specifics of the notary, the date, the form. People avoiding the truth step around it like a puddle in expensive shoes. I thanked her and shared nothing. Air can carry words both ways. Mine stayed home. Coffee can reveal the shape of intentions. We met in a bright cafe near the hospital. Milk steamed and hissed, sharp as a whisper. Cups clicked like small gavels. She leaned in with her elbows closed, a posture that begged trust. She kept repeating that everything would be fine, as if repetition were rope. I watched her eyes while she spoke around the subject. Pupils widened at county, tightened at amendment. She reached for her straw when I mentioned witness logs. Hands tell stories, even when mouths won't. I let her talk to the part of me that needed comfort. She said schedules get messy. She said paperwork does too. She floated the idea that mistakes happen and no one means harm. Her voice moved like a soft cloth over sharp corners. I nodded, let it pass over me, and felt for the corners she missed. She didn't ask if I'd seen the ledger. She didn't ask if a notary keeps a journal. She never volunteered where she was 8 months ago on a Tuesday at 3:17 p.m. Kindness without detail isn't kindness. It's cover. Decoys are gentle traps. That afternoon, I created 3 harmless documents with 3 harmless typos. 1 misspelled street, 1 shifted digit, 1 period where a comma should sit. I printed them on slightly different paper stocks and filed them in separate places. If a copy surfaced later, I'd know which drawer it escaped from. Canary pages, quiet and patient. Revenge is perception, sharpened by time. I gave the trap a week in my head, gave it a name I wouldn't say aloud. Unit 3B hummed like a held breath. The lease addendum pointed me to a modest building near an old laundromat. The hallway smelled of bleach and boiled pasta, the scent of ordinary lives. Mailboxes lined the wall, some dented, some glossy with new paint. I read names without touching metal. One label had been peeled and relabeled, the tape edges curled like a lie tired of holding on. No voyeurism, no shortcuts. Just observation and dates. Cameras watched the lobby with a lazy red blink. I let them record me being careful. Property has rhythms like people do. Sat in my car and watched the entrance reflect the afternoon. 10 minutes, 20, 30. A delivery driver dropped off mail and shrugged at the heat. A woman in scrubs carried a plant that had seen better days. Finally, the building manager stepped out to smoke. He looked like a man who knows the difference between noise and problem. I didn't approach. Made a note of his badge number and the name stitched on his shirt. Small facts are ladders I keep climbing. His patterns write louder than confessions. Back home, I laid dates across the kitchen counter and drew lines. Bank pings, rideshare triangles, work shifts traded. Every line pointed to the notary's block, then curled toward Unit 3B like a river finding gravity. Her mother's visits overlapped the strangest charges, the kind that hide in the miscellaneous line. The overlap wasn't clean, it was consistent. Consistency is just repetition with a purpose. Children deserve a fortress that looks like routine, kept the evening normal, spaghetti night. The red sauce bubbled and popped, warm and honest. The dishwasher thrummed low like a loyal dog sleeping by the door. Homework, bath, bedtime, 3 kisses, lights out, the little snore now part of my heartbeat. I stood in the hallway and promised myself that any storm would break on me, not them. I would be the ocean wall. They would be the quiet harbor. Okay, no drama for them. All the drama belongs to me. Kindness can be reconnaissance. I messaged the coworker again, thanked her for help, and asked nothing in return. She sent a list of numbers for clinics, lawyers, counselors. Thoughtful, thorough, too thorough. Every number belonged to the neighborhood around the notary. A map drawn by someone who thinks maps don't talk. I pinned the list. A pattern smiled back. I didn't smile with it. Paper leaves fingerprints even without hands. I filed a records request for the amendment packet and the notary's log copy. I asked for witness credentials, not names never too greedy at once. I also called our insurer to verify who changed our beneficiary list. The hold music was slow and syrupy, the kind that hides sharp questions. When the agent confirmed a change date near the amendment, I felt my shoulders settle into the truth. Separate acts can share a heartbeat. Some doors open when you bring a clean shirt and a steady gaze. The building manager agreed to speak if I respected privacy. He explained policies like they were commandments. Month-to-month leases, anonymous drop boxes, strict no discussion rule on tenants. He didn't tell me anything sensitive. Didn't have to. The posted notices in the lobby whispered enough pest control schedules. Maintenance calendar. A boiler inspection on the exact week our lease addendum appeared. Inspections require access. Access requires names. Names leave marks. I don't need them to trip. I need them to keep walking. People who think they are ahead, stop checking mirrors. I kept mine clean. I backed up files to a drive locked in a desk my father once kept taxes in. His pen scratches still ghost the wood. I ran a finger along the groove and thought about lineage, what we inherit, what we end. I decided my children would inherit quiet, not chaos. The break in the surface came as routine. The notary's office called about the log copy. It confirmed the entry, the time, the witness initials, normal voice. Bland words. A piece of the sun slid into place inside my chest. I thanked them and wrote down the exact minute the phone timestamp showed. Time is a blade when you sharpen it. The helpful friend flinched at nothing at all. That night she sent another message, warm and relentless. She suggested a convenient clinic for follow-up paperwork. The clinic shared a block with Unit 3B and the notary. 3 dots on a map, finally connected by someone else's helpfulness. I didn't reply. I stared at the screen until my reflection looked like a stranger who had decided something permanent. 8 months ago, they rehearsed forgery. Tonight, I rehearsed court. I drafted a checklist on a yellow pad my kids use for spelling. Notary copy, beneficiary change, lease addendum trail, witness verification, insurer audit request. 5 items. 5 stones in a sling. Revenge isn't fury. Revenge is trajectory. I drew a small circle next to each line, the same size as a pencil mark I saw in the hospital. Circles can erase, or they can target. Mine would target, and just before midnight, the house told me a secret. A soft click from the hallway cabinet. Not loud, not urgent, just a small memory of a latch that never sits right. I opened the drawer and saw a folder slightly misaligned, a corner peeking like a guilty shoulder. Inside a receipt for a notary travel fee. The date matched my ledger copy. The payer wasn't my wife. It was her mother. I didn't sleep. I didn't need to. Some truths wake you better than coffee. I lay there and counted the hums of the refrigerator like steady drum beats. The underdog in me stopped whispering and stood up. If you were me, would you burn the house down or file the right papers? I chose the papers. Fire is bright, then gone. Paper is quiet, then permanent. Tomorrow, the ladder gets taller, and I'm still climbing. Kindness arrived with plastic lids and a perfume I remembered. She came carrying soup and assurances, moving softly through my kitchen. Her bracelets chimed like a gentle warning, measured and practiced. She praised my calm, my patience, my devotion to family stability. Then she implied the obvious systems fail and good mothers correct records. She described adjustments as routine, protective, nothing anyone should fear. Her tone tucked knives inside blankets and offered them as comfort. I watched her hands hover over the hallway cabinet, almost casual. She never opened it. She didn't need to. I already had. Her rings clicked like a metronome for careful eyes. She spoke of privacy, of keeping drama away from small ears. She framed amendments as safeguards, not maneuvers, never strategies or rehearsals. She said mistakes happen, and responsible people tidy them quietly. She didn't mention notaries, witnesses, or travel fees dated perfectly. My pulse slowed as if matching her jewelry's steady tapping. I let the performance finish, thanked her, and cleared the bowls. Politeness is a lid that traps heat until proof boils. My canary document fluttered where kindness had passed. A photo pinged from the coworker, a sample intake form for later. The street name wore my planted typo like a borrowed coat. The comma I misused sat there smug and undeniable. Someone had touched my drawer and carried a copy outward. It's not Rageline, man. The trap hummed, small and satisfied. Saved the image to 3 places and labeled it twice. Evidence travels quietly when you hold your breath and listen. The trash confessed what mouths refused to say. After she left, I took the bin out back as usual. Under coffee grounds, a torn money order stub peeked sideways. Amount matched the notary's travel invoice to the exact dollar. The purchaser line carried her maiden initials in looping confidence. The date kissed the ledger entry like magnets meeting. I flattened the paper on the lid, smelling metal and rain. The underdog in me stopped apologizing for noticing everything. Unit 3B kept time with a stranger's errands. I returned at dusk, streetlights buzzing like tired hornets above. A delivery driver handed over a parcel, asked for a signature. The name on the tablet belonged to my brother-in-law, not her. He held the lease. She used the space. The math clicked. The driver's thermal bag smelled of onions and warm bread. Ordinary life wrapped extraordinary planning in grease-stained paper. I wrote the timestamp on my palm and watched the door close. Cameras remember even when people pretend they don't. The lobby lens blinked its lazy red while I studied reflections. Glass caught the coworker's silhouette a floor below the mailbox row. She carried a slim tote, the kind that hugs folders tight. She moved like someone sure of the hallway rhythm and codes. No confrontation. Just the quiet satisfaction of a puzzle tightening. Patterns don't shout when they're winning. They hum and keep walking. Her mother returned with recipes and a confession without the word. She framed prior calls to the insurer as necessary streamlining. Beneficiaries, emergencies, contact hierarchies, everything purely preventive, purely maternal. She called the county correction a courtesy, and administrative kindness offered. She placed a recipe card down, covering a missing drawer key. The card smelled of cinnamon and obligation baked together. I slid the card aside and kept my breath steady. Nothing she said helped her in court. Everything helped me. I logged the details the way a judge likes. No adjectives in the notes, only times, connections, and documents. Photo of the comma trap, money order stub, delivery timestamp, notary ledger copy, insurance change, confirmation, lease addendum edges. I wrote in block letters that looked like calm, not fire. Paper makes a different sound when it stacks into purpose. That sound replaced the hum of panic in my ribs. The coworker overperformed, and overperformance leaves fingerprints. She sent another resource list clustered around the same downtown block. Clinics, mailing centers, copy shops, 2 blocks from the notary. She apologized for being pushy, while pushing exactly the pattern harder. I thanked her again, and gave nothing back but silence. Silence carries messages if you let it arrive fully. I checked the apartment notices and found leverage disguised as routine. A pest control slip listed access windows and a key holder protocol. Entry requires confirmation contacts, kept on file for emergencies only. Emergencies create lists. Lists create names. Names create sworn statements. I photographed the slip and traced the phone number later. It rang to a service that records every maintenance call. Clerks don't argue with recordings. Clerks produce them when asked. The house rewarded patience with one more breadcrumb. Behind holiday plates, a slim folder wore hospital visitor stickers. Inside, copies of IDs for a notarization day, printed twice. Her coworker's smiling headshots stared up in laminated gloss. On the back, her mother's loops coached which lines to sign. Bring cash. Avoid midday. Request amended copy on the spot. It read like choreography written by someone who hates improvisation. I set the next ladder rung where they wouldn't see it. Requests queued, maintenance call records, money order, purchase confirmation, access logs. I scheduled a consult and a forensic look at the signatures. I drafted a simple timeline that breathes and bleeds in order. Not rage, not spectacle, just steps you can't argue away. If you were me, would you confront or continue collecting? I chose collecting. Confrontation feeds egos. Collection feeds verdicts. The night air tasted like metal and resolve. Streetlights washed the driveway in a tired amber spill. I stood there with the bin and the stub in proof. The underdog in me felt taller than the porch roof. 8 months of rehearsal sat neat inside their folders. Tomorrow I start rehearsing judgment with people who wear robes. They plan the paperwork, and will plan the consequences. And when the gavel falls, it will sound like relief. Midnight wore a borrowed face. I waded across from Unit 3B, engine off, windows cracked. The hallway buzzed like a tired beehive behind painted cinder block. A shoe squeaked, tote brushed fabric. The coworker slipped inside. No hesitation, no glance back. Rhythm like someone who belonged. I watched the numbers blink on the elevator panel, then settle. The lobby smelled of detergent, old mail, and somebody's takeout onions. I wrote the time, felt the page grow heavier than paper. Expectation failed on purpose. I expected my wife. I got her closest ally instead. Patterns shifted, but the gravity held. The plan wasn't casual. Casual doesn't rent a room and file amendments in sequence. Casual doesn't favor Tuesdays at 3 and travel fees in cash. If you were me, would you storm a door or store a fact? I stored the fact. Doors like that eat men for breakfast. The night opened its palm and showed me motive. The insurer's lobby glowed the next morning like polished bone. Air smelled of printer heat and citrus wipes, to clean to trust. My policy lived there, quiet as a sleeping animal on a shelf. A clerk printed the binder and slid it across like a mirror. The numbers stared back coverage doubled 8 months ago, neatly. A writer added, for accidental death, the kind that pays twice. Beneficiary adjusted to a single name, not mine. Not the kids. Ink can whisper murder without saying the word. Premiums shifted to money orders during the exact amendment month. The contact address pointed to the same post office block. Unit 3B hovered behind every line like a watermark. My signature on the change form leaned wrong again, leftward and heavy. Stranger's hand kept trying on my life like a jacket. If I vanished, the policy would bloom like a dark flower. I felt cold behind my knees, a chill shaped like arithmetic. Fear is loud. Preparation is quiet. I checked the car in daylight, not like a movie. Exactly. I logged service dates, tire rotations, brake work, nothing dramatic or flashy. I photographed what normal looks like before someone repaints it. I backed photos to drives named like grocery lists and homework. I told no one. I asked for nothing. I promised patience. Underdogs don't sprint. They pace and let giants trip on pride. I wanted a judge's nod, not a neighbor's gasp. The ledger spoke again when I listened for breath. The notary confirmed a second visit 2 weeks after the first. Same initials, same seal, a different form code in the margin. Form codes don't gossip. They confess without adjectives or tears. I added the code to my timeline and felt it lock. Everything circled a center I could finally name control. Control the paper, then control the person attached to it. Paper leashes are polite. They tighten just the same. I found the hinge, not the door. A file at home hid in plain sight among recipe clippings. Behind a soup card, a typed checklist breathed ink and certainty. Update beneficiary. Secure amendment. Keep keys separate. Void midday traffic. Her mother's loops coached each step like a dance instructor. My throat dried the way it does before thunderstorms. I didn't hate them. I hated the choreography that used me. If you were me, would you rage or write? I wrote. The apartment answered without opening. A parcel in the lobby wore the insurer's return address politely. It bulged like a binder. The label showed the brother-in-law's name. The carrier scanned, and the scanner blinked the same time window. Repetition isn't noise. It's a metronome for intent. I didn't touch it. I didn't hover. I watched it exist. Existing is enough when you're building a spine of facts. Spines hold up verdicts. Spectacle collapses under its own lights. Numbers can feel like hands when they close. I traced money orders back to a supermarket kiosk that records everything. The clerk printed a tidy ledger of stubs and timestamps. Her mother's initials threaded the column like a quiet signature. The exact amounts matched the premium increases to the dollar. The page smelled of ink, paper, dust, and locked certainty. I walked out into sunlight that felt unearned and necessary. A car alarm yelped once, then thought better of it. This wasn't marriage trouble. This was infrastructure. Forged slant on my name, an amended license that erases a spouse, at least a stage signatures off-site, rider that pays for accidents no one plans to avoid. Together, the pieces didn't argue. They agreed. Loudly, I stood very still and let the agreement settle in. Stillness is where plans grow roots deep enough to hold. The plan pivoted from gathering to aiming. I scheduled a forensic review of every signature wearing my face. I queued subpoenas for maintenance calls and access confirmations. I drafted an affidavit with verbs a judge respects. No speculation, no adjectives. Dates, amounts, codes, and copies. I listed the kids first under the section titled Stability. Courts listen harder when children sit at the center of sentences. Justice sells itself better when it speaks softly and brings receipts. The coworker overcommitted at precisely the wrong second. She texted a helpful reminder about renewing a parking tag. The office for tags shared a wall with the notary storefront. I pinned the message and felt the map in my pocket pulse. Good people don't triangulate errands around a forgery corridor. Helpful people become helpful evidence when they can't stop performing. I let the reminder sit, unread, like a pebble on glass. Midpoint means the floor stops being floor. I stood in my kitchen, palms flat on cool laminate. The fridge clicked alive, and the sound steadied my ribs. I wasn't waiting for confessions anymore. I was building them. Built things stand. Thrown things shatter. I chose to build. If you were me, would you light the match or wire the case? I wired the case. The fuse is paperwork. The boom is quiet. When it goes off, it will sound like a gavel once. Proof has a heartbeat when experts touch it. The document examiner's office smelled like dry paper and old lamps. He handled copies with gloved care and spoke only in measurements. Line weight, entry stroke. Pen lifts where habits never lift. My signature rose right. The amendment dragged left, heavy and slow. He circled tremors where confidence should live in muscle memory. Non-habitual formations, he wrote, with pressure inconsistent across baselines. His report landed on the desk like a small stainless hammer. I didn't celebrate. Hammers are quiet until a judge picks one. Patterns prefer calendars to confessions. I laid our life against a wall of sticky notes. Pink for work swaps, yellow for bank pings, blue for notarizations. The colors stacked into a skyline I couldn't ignore anymore. Shift trades lined up with travel fees and P.O. box withdrawals. Tuesdays bore the weight. Fridays closed the loop neatly. Chaos never stays on schedule. Conspiracy loves a neat grid. Logs remember what people try to forget. I pulled call records from the maintenance service that loves rules. Times, durations, and the polite hum of recorded consent prompts. A familiar voice requested access windows on 2 inspection weeks. She referenced the apartment by code, not by name or tenant. Her tone wrapped commands in courtesy, practiced, and sugar-coated. I noted the timestamps and the caller ID that never changed. Mothers can sound maternal while moving chess pieces across strangers' floors. Silence can coax a door to open halfway. The building manager allowed me to hear snippets in his office. Air smelled of carpet cleaner and cooled coffee, patient and blunt. A second voice thanked him for discretion, bright with practiced innocence. She promised a tip left with the super in labeled envelopes. Cash leaves fewer ripples. Voices leave more than they realize. I wrote down pauses where lies needed air to breathe. Money is a pen that writes without ink. The supermarket kiosk printed its history with bureaucratic pride. Serial numbers matched stubs I had dried over metal trash lids. Amounts mirrored premium jumps, identical down to the final cents. A small camera watched the kiosk at shoulder height, unblinking. I requested footage for the dates the ledger already loved. The clerk shrugged kindly. Policy served me better than charm. When the images arrive, they will not need narration. Children deserve certainty while adults build cases. I met the school nurse with calm, folded into simple sentences. Consent forms had been refreshed mid-year, the polite word she used. 2 contacts elevated above me, both from the same side. An emergency protocol changed for field trips without my acknowledgement. The nurse asked for a re-verification, neutral voice, careful eyes. I supplied forms, IDs, and the weird relief of procedure. Kids went to recess. Paper kept them right where safety lives. The past hides in drawers, but also in printers. At home, the hallway cabinet breathed like a creature feigning sleep. A toner box sat open beside a stack of glossy stock. On top lay a misprint of a county seal, cut badly. Edges rough, circle warped, color leaning toward the wrong blue. They had practiced even the stamp, then settled for the real thing. Practice leaves crumbs. Courts call crumbs a trail when you gather them. I let helpfulness braid its own rope. The coworker sent a spreadsheet of resources. She swore would save me. Every office lived within 4 blocks of the forgery corridor. She apologized for overstepping while stepping exactly where I tracked. I thanked her again, logged the file hash, and saved the route. Helpers who can't stop helping often carry keys they don't own. I would borrow those keys without touching her trembling hands. Human tricks fail where systems count loudly. HR at the restaurant confirmed swaps through a bright, tired portal. Her account initiated trades that always favored the same narrow windows. The coworker accepted, mid-shift, with the speed of rehearsed reflexes. Screenshots don't perform. They persist, bland and sharp as tile. I saved PDFs and the frictionless clicks that birthed them. If you're me, you learn to love bland more than fireworks. Bland wins hearings, fireworks win comments. I'm not chasing comments. I followed a receipt to a wall made of boxes. The post office hummed like a patient hive at lunch. Metal doors clacked and chirped, a chorus for private lives. A rental record confirmed a box paid 6 months in cash. Authorized users listed by initials tidy and deniable. Recognize the loops again, faint on a photocopied slip. Loops can travel further than their owners plan to admit. Insurance speaks fluently in footnotes. A rider clause referenced substantial interest of designated party. The designated party wasn't me and never had been me. Change requests align with money orders, like dancers hitting marks, the agent's notes. Redacted. Still betrayed office locations and code. I wrote the code next to the form the notary loved. When codes align, judges don't need adjectives from angry men. I drew a clean line between suspicion and proof. Suspicion lives in the chest and burns without heat. Proof lives on paper and invites strangers to look closely. I moved items from one column to the other with care. Signature opinion, notary log, maintenance recordings, money order list, R-swaps, school re-verification, post office rental, policy footnotes. 8 pieces, enough to stop pretending this is marital turbulence. This is choreography with a budget and a schedule. I built the affidavit like a small, steady house. Short sentences, verbs with spines, nouns that don't wobble. Children lead the first paragraph. Their routines spelled out plainly. Instability harms them. Structure feeds them. The court knows this song. I attached exhibits with tabs that whisper, not scream. The examiner's seal. The ledger page. The kiosk ledger. I left out the anger. Doesn't help affidavits breathe. Then the apartment blinked at me from a different angle. A tenant bulletin announced a fire drill and stairwell repainting. Access hours required a temporary key stored with the manager. I asked politely whether logs reflect who borrowed the ring. He nodded toward policy again, the shield he trusts more than faces. Policy will hand me a list when paper knocks later. Names on logs act like magnets around lies. Lies eventually clink against them whether they like it or not. I rehearsed the reveal without saying it aloud. A conference room, a long table, clock that clicks softly. My folder opened, not like a surprise, like a ledger. First the signatures, then the swaps, then the kiosk trail, then the policy, then the box, then the maintenance calls. Only then the school forms, steady as a final drumbeat. No accusations, only maps. Maps make people confess to gravity. Resolve is a taste you learn to prefer. Metallic at first, then clean, like water after rain. I stood by the sink and let the faucet run clear. 8 months of planning gnawed at me from the edges. I let them gnaw. I'm still here. The edges are mine. If you were me, would you spring the trap tonight? Not yet. Traps work best when the room looks ordinary. I added one more rung to the ladder they built for me. A request for surveillance from the kiosk in the lobby. A notice to preserve logs at the maintenance service. Date stamped. Quiet email to the examiner, confirming chain of custody. An appointment on the calendar that will not move for anyone. Paper doesn't hurry, but it never forgets its destination. Neither do I. The next door isn't a door. It's a curtain. And somewhere behind that curtain, motives stop being theoretical. Not love, not jealousy, not even thrill. Simple arithmetic in neat handwriting. Erase a spouse. Control a policy. Stage a signature far from home. Keep keys separate. Keep witnesses close. Keep the underdog polite. They mistook polite for powerless. That's ending soon. When the curtain lifts, I won't raise my voice. I'll raise the file, and the quiet will do the rest. The room believed in clocks. Conference table waited under humming vents and square light. My folder sat centered, tabs like teeth ready to bite. Air smelled of copier heat, and carpet cleaned yesterday. Kept my voice in my ribs and let paper breathe. Across from me, kindness wore makeup and a careful smile. Beside her, motherhood pressed lips thin, rings stacked like armor. I placed the first exhibit down and watched shoulders stiffen. Maps confess faster than people. Notary ledger, witness initials. My slant versus the counterfeit slant. The expert circles lived on the page like neat bruises. I slid the maintenance timestamps across the table, patient and blunt. A recorded call time matched an access window to Unit 3B. The worksheet of resources drew a tidy halo downtown. Clinics, copy shops, mailing centers for small blocks, one large plan. I didn't speak motive. I let gravity do that labor. Helpers turn bright under the right light. I set the co-worker's spreadsheet next to the witness initials. A lobby frame showed her tote near the mailbox row. Her shifts swapped toward Tuesdays whenever money orders moved. Her smile faltered, then tried to return to its line. Smiles need scaffolding. Paper saws through that fast. I added the canary typo she carried out of my drawer. The comma sat smug, a breadcrumb that learned to shout. Ink can sound like footsteps coming down the hall. I laid the policy writer over the premium ledger. Money orders matched increases to the exact final cent. The beneficiary change sat beside my wrong-leaning signature. Quiet arithmetic chilled the edges of my spine. This wasn't drama. This was design with rent and receipts. The helper watched numbers add themselves without asking her permission. She reached for a tissue she didn't actually need yet. Motive wore a familiar perfume. I brought out the trash lid stub, flattened and undeniable. Travel fee for a notary, purchased on the amendment week. The purchaser line carried household loops I'd seen on recipes. Her rings clicked once against the table, light and hard. I followed with the kiosk registry and the surveillance request slip. Then the maintenance service log where her voice thanked discretion. Courtesy can be camouflage. The microphone never cares. The first reveal landed without raised voices. I arranged the coworkers' artifacts into a circle that closed. Witness mark, corridor routes. Shift swaps aligned with notarization days. The canary form in her messages, typo intact and grinning. Patterns louder than denial, recorded without adjectives or heat. She stared at the table as if it might blink. She didn't confess. The documents did. A kind person can coordinate harm and still call it help. The second reveal changed the weather in the room. I turned the folder toward the mother and set the spine. Money orders bearing her initials lined up like marching coins. Insurance notes, post office rental, access calls in her practiced voice, visitor stickers and checklist coaching in the same looping hand, bring cash, avoid midday, request amended copy immediately, erase a spouse politely, then hold the policy tightly. She adjusted a bracelet that suddenly weighed more than metal. Revenge doesn't need volume. It needs sequence. I followed the reveals with a short, clean list. Fraud notifications already queued for the insurer's investigation unit. A complaint prepared for the recorder and the notary board. A petition drafted to vacate the amendment and freeze changes. Emergency orders ready to stabilize custody and school protocols. Chain of custody confirmed for every exhibit on the table. I promised nothing out loud. The paper promised enough. Consequences look like procedures when you do them right. Insurer holds trigger automatic reviews and recorded interviews. Recorder complaints pull logs that prefer ink to memory. Notary boards suspend commissions while signatures meet microscopes. Courts love timelines that carry children first, in plain words. I kept my gaze steady, not hard, just anchored. They expected heat. I brought winter. Ow. Winter preserves evidence and breaks branches quietly. I handed her a clean page that could end the storm. A parenting plan that protects routines and removes interference. Therapy compliance. Financial disclosures. No contact with forged corridors. Supervised help from family only after the court approves it. No more keys floating between kitchens and mailboxes. No more amendments born in strip malls at 3. No more lattice kindness around other people's signatures. Simple signature could keep the children's world quiet. The helper reached for air that wasn't there. She offered explanations made of soft fabric and missing nails. Accidents, misunderstandings, schedules, 1,000 small apologies without anchors. I kept my pen still and my timeline louder. The mother tried steel next procedure talk, spoken like mercy. Procedure already lived on my side of the table. I watched her realize the room was built for it, brick by brick, and none of them hers. Underdogs win by refusing the spectacle. I didn't recite betrayal. I documented engineering. I didn't list feelings. I listed code numbers and clocks. I didn't chase confession. I curated consequences within reach. And if you were me, would you savor this? Or keep moving? I kept moving. Relief is a future, not a moment. The folder closed with a sound I'll remember longer than cheers. Quiet can thunder when you finally earn it. The room exhaled and chose its directions. The coworker studied the door like it might forgive her. The mother calculated new paths that wouldn't exist anymore. My wife stared at the clean page as if it breathed. I felt the ocean wall inside me hold firm and kind. This isn't about burning anyone to ash. This is about removing matches from the house. The next sound I want is a judge's single nod. When the curtain lifts, light behaves like truth. I gathered exhibits in the order a gavel prefers. First, the children's routines, then the lies that tried to bend them, then the systems that kept standing while people pretended otherwise. I walked out under sky the color of stainless steel. Air tasted like nickels and rain and something earned. 8 months of rehearsal ended on a table today. Tomorrow, we stop the music and keep the house. The verdict sounded exactly like I imagined once. A single nod. A gavel kiss. Paper shuffled like rain. The room smelled of wool suits and stale coffee, solemn and clean. My folder exhaled. The court accepted every tab in its spine. The amendment was vacated, as neat as erasing chalk. Temporary orders became durable. Custody stabilized, routines protected, noise barred. Interference ended in a sentence that fit on one line. Justice wears ordinary clothes when it's real. No fireworks, no shouting. Just signatures landing in careful ink. The notary board suspended a commission pending full review. The insurer froze suspicious changes and opened their own investigation. The recorder flagged the file so no one edits in silence. The apartment lease ended under a term called misuse of access, policy, procedure. Plain words that move like heavy machines. The map that trapped me now freed me. Unit 3 be emptied. The hallway smelled like bleach and dust. Lobby cameras blinked without interest, bored and honest. Mailboxes closed on nothing in particular. Finally, I walked past and felt the building's breath turn neutral again. A corridor used for choreography became only a corridor. Sometimes revenge is just returning objects to their original names. The helper discovered the weight of a spreadsheet. Her tote no longer needed to hug folders so tightly. Her initials faded from calendars and witness lines. Cooperation arrived in quiet emails with subject lines like record. She learned that soft apologies don't float when ledgers sink them. I didn't gloat. I logged the cooperation and moved on. Paper teaches humility more efficiently than lectures do. Motherhood removed its armor and kept its silence. Rings stopped clicking against my kitchen table. Recipes sat where recipes belong, no keys underneath. The travel fee stubs now belonged to a file I no longer opened. I remembered the cinnamon and the obligation baked into it. Obligation is a spice that overwhelms every dish eventually. The court's order made distance taste better than forgiveness for now. My wife signed the page that keeps the house quiet. Therapy compliance, financial transparency, supervised involvement from kin. No more corridors built of errands and euphemisms. No more signatures wearing masks with my handwriting. She placed her pen down like a truce flag folded twice. I felt a sadness that didn't ask to be dramatic. Some endings are merciful because they don't pretend to be wins. Children measure justice by bedtime, not headlines. Lunch is still packed, shoes still by the door, mismatched and happy. The dishwasher hummed a steady lullaby under the evening. Homework corners collected pencil eraser dust, proof of small battles. They asked for stories that didn't involve courthouses or cameras. I gave them dinosaurs, oceans, rockets, and tomorrow. Their breathing at night reset my ribs to human again. Paper doesn't hold grudges, but it remembers. Affidavits slept in a drawer I finally locked without flinching. Backups lived in clouds with dull names and perfect timestamps. Evidence kept its promise to be permanent and quiet. I stopped rehearsing the reveal and started rehearsing peace. Peace has its own checklist. Dishes, calls, walks, sleep. I checked boxes that make no noise and everything better. I visited the places where plans used to hide. The notary storefront still smelled like laminate and citrus cleaner. Clipboards rattled without meaning anything to me anymore. Post office hummed, metal doors clacking for other lives. The kiosk camera stared through me as if I were air. Being air felt right. I preferred it to being a target. Targets attract arrows. Air lets them fall at your feet. The expert circles became a lesson, not a wound. Line, weight, entry, stroke. Habits that prove identity over time. I started noticing my own true slant on grocery lists. My name rose slightly right, exactly where my life now leaned. Upward. Away from corridors that call themselves kindness. Upward. Toward rooms that trust clocks more than charm. Upward, with kids who sleep like small, forgiving moons. Anger wanted a curtain call. I closed the stage door. Rage is bright, then gone. It never cleans up the glitter. I left the theater to the ones who need applause. I chose sidewalks, early light, and the sound of shoes. Hot asphalt in summer. Leaves lifting in the evening. Coffee cooling enough to taste the bean, not the burn. These are victories underdogs keep because giants overlook them. The house learned to breathe the way houses should. No humming drawers. No latches whispering late. A refrigerator tick. A faucet drip. A dog sigh. Organize the hallway cabinet by the names things deserve. Insurance. School. Health. Taxes. No folder titled emergency anymore. I slid the last tab in and felt the shelf steady. Stability makes a small, satisfying sound when it fits. I kept one artifact for the day's doubt returns. It's the yellow pad with checkboxes and penciled rings. 5 stones in a sling, all now spent and quiet. I don't frame it. I don't show it off. I keep it near the spare batteries and the tape. Preparedness belongs with other ordinary necessary things. If you were me, you'd keep it too. People asked how it ended. I practiced the shortest version. The judge nodded. Paper 1. The kids slept. The long version tastes like metal and disinfectant and rain. The short version tastes like tap water gone perfectly clear. Both are true. Only one belongs in most conversations. The rest belongs to ledgers, archives, and a locked drawer. I let the drawer keep it. I kept the rest of my life. Justice for the quiet partner isn't loud, but it lasts. I didn't burn a house. I removed the matches. I didn't chase confession. I built consequences that stand. The underdog didn't roar. He endured, recorded, and prevailed. 8 months of rehearsal ended with one small nod. And one nod can echo forever if you build the room right. Listen closely. You can still hear it if you need to. And if you're where I was, start small and start now. Breathe, copy, date, file. Ask systems to speak for you. Keep children's routines sacred while the grown-ups learn gravity. Let kindness be kind, not a key you didn't hand out. Choose math over flame, maps over scenes, verdicts over applause. When the moment comes, it won't look cinematic. It will look like a signature that finally belongs to you. The letter arrived on a quiet Tuesday. Thin envelope. Heavy silence. The insurer's seal cold as nickel. I opened it over the sink where water can carry heat away. Findings confirmed. Changes reversed. Investigation ongoing. My name rose right on every line that mattered. I filed the letter where calm lives now. The hallway cabinet didn't hum, simply held. Outside, sprinklers ticked like a lazy metronome for peace. I brewed coffee I could finally taste, not just swallow. If you're where I was, breathe. Start with one copy. Justice is patient. Patience is sharp when you aim it. I didn't win with volume. I won with receipts. I didn't scorch the earth, fenced the garden. If someone tried to edit your life on paper, what would you do? Would you chase the scream or the stamp? Tell me below. Tell me where you'd start. If this helped, stay. I make quiet victories loud enough to learn from. Subscribe for the next underdog who turns paperwork into power. Share this with one person who needs a map more than a speech.